Again, good morning, everyone, wherever you are. Okay, Long Pi Narongchai, welcome everyone back to the second episode of the Sutta study. Okay, as you may know, we have been providing ordination and training for foreign monks, and during this rain retreat, we have the Sutra study on every Friday morning. So instead of myself and my monk's brother learn the Sutra together, which is the precious gift from the Buddha himself to mankind. So instead of just a few of us study this wisdom, so why don't we share this lecture with the world? So if anyone can make time for this, you guys are welcome. Okay, and my idea is just give people a chance to get to the feeling or experience of how the Buddha teach the monks back then, according to the Buddhist scripture. And as I have noticed that the weakest point of all religion followers is people don't have time to study their own religions, especially the Buddhist text or the text of each religion. We just believe, blind belief, we just follow what people do, and we learn from internet, we learn from books, from all the teachers out there, which is good, it's a good start. But the primary source of the teaching of the Buddha is kept in the Buddhist text. And that's something that everyone, especially those who follow the teaching of the Buddha, should go back, at least once in your lifetime to open it up, take a look what it said, and how do you feel, what is the meaning behind the text, and that's the idea. And now you become a monk, this is your main job, to study the authentic teaching of the Buddha, which is the Buddhist text. And once you get to know the authentic teaching of the Buddha, you may not understand what it means by each vocabulary that used, by the context that present in the text. And that's another story. We have to figure out, we have to help each other to understand the real meaning behind the text. So I'm always excited every time I touch the text, every time I open the text, and every time I read the text, I feel like I am getting closer to the Buddha himself. So another benefit of study the Buddhist text is it helps us to increase the faith toward the Buddha teaching. It helps strengthen our faith. It's a reminder of who we are. We call ourselves a Buddhist monk, we call ourselves a Buddhist lay people, but we don't study his teaching, authentic teaching. And this is the opportunity. And that is why always, Long Pi always excited about not only study by myself, but in terms of sharing with others as well. Today, since the sutra is a little bit long, we are approaching the Majjhima Nikaya, which is the middle length discourse of the Buddha. And the sutra number 26 is called the Noble Search. The Noble Search, the name in Pali is called Ariyapariyesana Sutta. Majjhima Nikaya number 26, which is the middle length discourse of the Buddha. In this middle length discourse, it has about 152 sutras. This sutra is sutra number 26, and there is a reason why I choose this sutra to begin with of this the second episode. In this sutra, it's I believe it's about 25 or 30 pages long, which is quite long. I will kind of capture the important part of this sutra and share with everyone today. We will divide it into two parts. For this week, we get to know the first part. And the second week, which is next Friday, we will finish the second part. So altogether, you see the whole picture of the story that mentioned in this particular sutra. So the sutra name Ariyapariyesana Sutta. Ariya means noble, something good, something very special, something noble. Pariyesana means search or quest. So together, Ariyapariyesana means the quest for something noble. Here is the starting point, of the sutra about this particular sutra. Ariyapariyesana Sutta. Another name you may find is Pasarasi Sutta. And the book I use as a reference is this book, Bhikkhu Bodhi Majjhima Nikaya, on I think it's page 230. This particular sutra to me is very special. Why is that? Most of the Buddhist people, when we hear the teaching of the Buddha, we will think of the Four Noble Truths. And when we think of the Four Noble Truths, we think of the first teaching of the Buddha, which is the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, right? We start from there. But what happened before that, before the Buddha get to meet his first 5 students, not many people know about it. Not many people know about this story. And to me, this is very important because something missing in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, but it appears here in this particular sutra. So the sutra itself start from why Prince Siddhartha wants to ordain or wants to renounce the world. That's the starting point. And after that, he went out searching, right? On his search, he met with his teacher, first teacher, actually two teachers, Ananda and Uttaka, aesthetic. He went there to learn meditation from them. He seek for the knowledge. And after that, he practiced by himself. Okay, the text talk about his discovery, which is his enlightenment. And then it go all the way to his first teaching, to the 5 ascetic or the first 5 students. This is the story of the Buddha himself. He shared his personal story to the monk after he achieved enlightenment. It's so beautiful for us to be able to access to these particular sutras. It gives us a very good foundation of what actually happening, why he want to ordain, and after he left the palace, what happening, who was the person he met, okay, who was the first teacher, what did he learn, and why he left the first teacher and go to the second teacher, and what did he learn, what did he achieve. And then he met with the 5 ascetic. He tortured himself for 6 years. And what did he discover? Something called enlightenment, something called Nibbana. And then he moved on to the story of himself, give the first teaching to the first 5 ascetic. Everything is included here in this particular sutra. And that is why Luang Pi feel like, this sutra is so special. And whether you are a monk or a lay Buddhist, this is a good start. It gives you like the whole picture. So today we will cover the first part. Okay, this is the noble search, the reason why he decided to renounce the world. Okay, and what exactly that he searched for. And next week we will explore the second part, which is what exactly mean enlightenment. What did he achieve? Many people think of enlightenment as the Four Noble Truths, which is completely, perfectly correct. Okay, no problem with that. But not many people know that there is something that the Buddha referred to, which is not the Four Noble Truths, something that he realized, and with that realization, he attained full enlightenment, which is mentioned in this particular sutra. And that's why I found it's very interesting. So, but when we study the Buddhist text, we kind of have to study a few sutras in order to connect all the dots together, and then we can see the whole picture clearly, not just one particular sutra. And keep in mind that the sutra is the text that composed 500 years after the Buddha passed away. Okay, 500 years after the Buddha passed away. But before that, people memorized the teaching of the Buddha and passed on. Okay, one generation of monk to another generation of monk verbally. There was no writing, there was no pen, there was no paper. It's just memorized and passed on. 500 years, and then it go to the text, it go to the format of writing. 500 years after he passed away, okay, between 400 to 500 years. So many things can get lost, many things can get added on. Just keep that in mind. So when we read, we kind of have, I like to call the detective mind. We want to detect what is the truth, what is the meaning behind the text that we read. We don't just blind believe and believe every single letter that we read. That's not something I recommended. Okay, so if you have a detective mind, you're going to have more enjoyable time when you study the Buddhist text. All right, so here is the starting point of the sutra. The sutra starts like this: thus have I heard. Pretty much every sutra starts with this sentence. For those of you who are new to sutra study, this is something you should get familiar with. Okay, the Pali called Eva me sutang. Eva me sutang ekang samayang. This is the one when we chant the Dhammachak. It starts from Eva me sutang. What is Eva me sutang? Eva me sutang means, thus have I heard. Someone heard the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha himself, he teaches this sutra, but someone heard it and then share with us and confirm with us that this is the one that the Buddha actually teach. That's why it's called Deva Me Sutang. Okay, that's have I heard. And who is that person? Let's take a look. On one occasion, the Blessed One is another name for the Buddha. The Blessed One, the Tathagata, the teacher, the awakening one. Okay, it depends on the translator. So this book translated by Bhikkhu, both three, right? But when you grab another book that translates from Pali to English, from another translator, you may encounter different vocabulary. So the best place is Pali, of course, that's the authentic one. But now it gets translated to many languages. So the Blessed One, referred to the Buddha, was staying at Savatthi. What is Savatthi? Savatthi is the name of the city. where the Buddha stay. Stay where? In Jeta Grove. What is Jeta Grove? Jeta Grove is the name of the temple called Jetavanaram. Jetavanaram Monastery. Okay? Basically, it's the name of the temple, which donated by or offered by the man named Ananda Bhikkhu. Okay? He is the foremost male supporter of the Buddha. So Ananda is the one who offered this monastery. It's called Jetawan or Jeta Grove at Savatthi city. Then early in the morning, you see the picture? Early in the morning, what happened? The Buddha, having put on his robe and carrying his bowl and outer robe, then he went to Savatthi for alms. The Buddha go bintabat. This is a typical activity of the monk. So he get dressed, he wake up, he get dressed, he grab the bowl, put the sanghati on, put the jiwan on, and then he get ready for the alms round. This is early in the morning. Then the large number of monks went to Ananda. This is Ananda. Ananda is the person who said this word. Thus have I heard. So after the Buddha passed away, so the monks get together, leading by Kassapa Thera. Kassapa Thera is the one of the great disciples of the Buddha. So he called for the Sangha meeting to kind of reconfirm, okay, what exactly that the Buddha teach. And two masters have been called to answer the question. The first one is Master Upali or Venerable Upali, who are the master of the Vinaya, the rules. Is this something the Buddha said? Is this correct? So Kassapa would call Upali, and then he will ask the question to Upali in terms of Vinaya or the monastic rules. But when in terms of the Dhamma, the sutra, Kassapa, Venerable will call Ananda. Ananda, is this something the Buddha teach? Would you reconfirm? You see the picture? And then everyone kind of asks the question to Ananda or Upali. It depends on what kind of topic. If it's Vinaya, ask Upali. If it's the Sutra or the Dhamma teaching, ask Ananda. And that's why it starts like this. Thus have I heard. Because Ananda, I have heard the Buddha teach this story to this group of monks. Okay? And who is Ananda? Ananda is not only the Buddha relative or cousin. Ananda is the permanent, okay, attendant for the Buddha himself. Okay? In the first 20 years, the Buddha don't have a permanent attendant. Okay? He teach and someone help him, okay, along the way in the first 20 years. But in the second half of his life, 25 years of his teaching career, he select Ananda to be his permanent attendant, to look after him. And one great quality of Ananda, not only he is a smart person, he have a superpower memory. Okay? He memorized everything that the Buddha teach and kept in his brain, kept in his mind. And that's why Venerable Kassapa asked him to reconfirm, is this the real teaching of the Buddha? And Ananda would verify that. Then a group of monks went to Ananda and said, it has been a long time, friend Ananda, since we heard the Dhamma talk by the Buddha. It would be good if we could hear the Dhamma talk by the Buddha again. As you can see here, Ananda is a Buddha attendant. So this group of monks may not familiar with the Buddha, so they cannot get close to the Buddha. So they approached Ananda after the Buddha went on alms round. You know what, I haven't heard the teaching of the Buddha for quite some time. Is that possible, or any way that we can listen to the Dhamma talk from the Buddha himself? That's basically what happened at the beginning scene of this sutra. And Ananda said, you know, in the case Venerable, the Buddha will go to the place called Hermitage, Ramaka, the Brahmin, the place that owned by the Brahmin named Ramaka. Perhaps you guys should go there to hear the Dhamma by the Buddha. That's what Ananda tell those group of monks who want to listen to the teaching of the Buddha. And the group of the monks said, as you said, friend. And then the monks left Ananda. Okay, that's the introduction of the sutra. So that means this sutra, a group of monks want to listen to the teaching of the Buddha, and then they find a way where the Buddha would give the next teaching. So they approach Ananda. Ananda suggests that, you know what, go there today and the Buddha will give the teaching at the place called Hermitage Ramaka. And the monks went there and wait for the Buddha. Oh, by the way, let me give you a little bit background of the monastery back then. There are three well-known monasteries that the Buddha stayed. Okay, the first one offered by King Bimbisan, okay, at the city called Ratchakra or Ratchakru, King Bimbisan, and the monastery named Veluwan. This is the first monastery that offered to the Buddha by the king named Bimbisan. The Buddha stayed there. And this is the second and the third, okay, that the Buddha received offering from the foremost male supporter named Ananda Bhikkhu. and the monastery named Jetawan or Jeta Grove. This is the one this sutta take place at the city called Savatthi. And the third one, which is the temple in the same town, Savatthi, is called Buparam, offered by Visakha, okay, the foremost or the great female supporter of the Buddha. The Buddha spent his last 19 years before he passed in between these two places. The text said if he spent the day at Jetawan, he would spend the night at Buparam. If he spent the night at Buparam, he would spend the day at Jetawan, Savatthi, which is supported by both of his great disciples, Ananda as a male supporter and Visakha as a female supporter. In his last 19 years, he gave a lot of teaching, okay, in this particular two temples. And the sutta starts like this. Bhikkhu, there are two kinds of search, the noble search and the ignoble search. And what is ignoble search? Ignoble search and the noble search and the ignoble search. What is the ignoble search? Here someone being himself subject to birth, seek for what is also subject to birth. Being himself subject to aging, he seeks what is also subject to aging. Being himself subject to sickness, he seeks what is also subject to sickness. Being himself subject to death, he seeks what is also subject to death. And being himself subject to sorrow, he seeks what is also subject to sorrow. And the last one, being himself subject to defilement, okay, greed, hatred, and delusion, he seeks for what is also subject to defilement. Do you following Long Pi so far? This is the, I like you to feel, okay, the text by yourself. That's why I bring it here and I read it out loud so you can hear it and you can read it with me. Basically, the Buddha, okay, tell the monk that there are two kinds of search, ignoble search and noble search. The typical way or the typical teaching style of the Buddha is usually like this. He usually starts off with something negative of the teaching first, the negative side of the teaching first, and then he tells us to avoid doing that. And he will finish up with the positive side of the teaching. So teach us to cultivate those qualities so we can live good life. So you think about the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths start from suffering, right? And then following by how to end suffering. Same thing with the karma. When he teach karma, he talk about unwholesome karma first, and then finish by the wholesome karma. And similar to this, the Buddha talk about ignoble search first. If you search for this, your life will be suffering. But if you search for something opposite called noble search, your life will be happy or happier. Okay, that's the teaching style of the Buddha. And here the Buddha explained what is subject to birth. He explained each item that he mentioned. What is subject to aging, what is subject to sickness, what is subject to death, what is subject to sorrow, what is subject to defilement. What exactly is subject to this? The Buddha explained clearly to each particular item that he mentioned. The Buddha said wife and children are subject to birth. Men and women slave subject to birth. Goat, sheep, chicken, pig, elephant, cattle, horses, and the mare, they are subject to birth. You see how simple of the example that the Buddha used, okay? Gold and silver are subject to birth as well. This is quite interesting. This acquisition are subject to birth, and one who is tied this thing, obsessed with them, and utterly committed to them, being himself subject to birth, seek for what is subject to birth. This is called an ignoble search. And it goes on to the rest, okay? Aging, sickness, death, sorrow, and defilement in the similar manner. In short, the Buddha explained that these four things are subject to birth. Number one, spouse and children, subject to birth, right? Men and women, slave, employee, people that work for us, they're subject to birth. Animal, okay, all type of animal, they are subject to birth as well. But the interesting thing is the Buddha mentioned gold and silver or material wealth are subject to birth. This is an inanimated, it's a non-living thing, right? The first four is a living thing. Not the last one is not the living thing. We understand that, human, animal, birth, aging, death. How come the Buddha mentioned gold and silver here, because how can gold and silver? Birth, aging and death, right? So when you study, you kind of, like I said, you have to put the detective mind on it, the curiosity mind on it, and try to understand why the Buddha put it here. What is the essence of this particular teaching? Okay, we are called a samsaric being. Okay, we born, we die, we born, we die in this cycle of existence forever. And there is something called object, the samsaric object. What is samsaric object? These four things are samsaric object. The object that keep us trapped in the realm of existence, or we call sense pleasure. We find pleasurable, we find happiness through what we see. See what? See human, see animal, see object, see wealth, see car, see money, see opportunity. And we seek for it, and we think that this search would find us happiness, would take us to happiness or the real happiness. And that's what most people are trapped with in this realm of materialism. So we get trapped in the sense pleasure, find happiness through the sense pleasure, and then we get trapped in this samsara. So money presented here because it comes with attachment. Human, animal, object, and money, fame, material wealth, it comes with attachment. And that attachment or clinging will take us to suffering if we are consuming them, not mindfully. When those are seen acquisition, okay, those mean this one, okay, spouse, men, women, animal, material wealth, are seen as acquisition. One become attached and one become infatuated. We will never feel enough of having more. That's something we like from seeing, something we like from hearing, something we like from tasting, something we like from touching. We want more of that. With this acquisition, seeking happiness with what is subject to birth is called ignoble search. If you seek happiness to all of this, it's called ignoble search. And the Pali use the word upati. Upati is acquisition. Upati means attachment. Okay, acquisition or attachment or access or possession. Okay, all of this is upati. Something we cling on it, but that thing that we cling on, it comes with suffering, it comes with danger, and it is called ignoble search. Same thing with aging, sickness, death, sorrow, and defilement. So the text go on to explain each item that the Buddha mentioned earlier. And the question is, do I have to give up everything? Do I have to abandon everything? Okay, you have to keep in mind that the Buddha speaks on behalf of himself, in the view of renunciation, a person who seeks for true liberation, a person who seeks for enlightenment. And now he shares his own opinion to the monk. And who is the monk? The monk is a person, right? The monk is a person who sees the danger in samsara. That's why he become a monk. He wants to go to Nibbana faster. He wants to achieve liberation faster than the lay people. That's why they sign up to become a monk. So now the monk talk to the monk. The Buddha is a monk, and the monk as a student. So he shares his opinion that, you know what, guy, this is called ignoble search. If you search for this, you will be further away to realize Nibbana. And that's why it's called ignoble. Whatever you search for, it comes with suffering. So you shouldn't go that direction. But if you're a lay person, okay, you don't have to give up everything. The Buddha did not say that. The Buddha teach a man to treat his wife properly, treat his children properly. The Buddha teach the wife to look after her husband. What is the best way to look after her husband? What is the appropriate way to look after her children? And what is the way that children, okay, should look after their parents when they get old? You see, this is the beauty of the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha wants us to know that life is suffering, and the Buddha wants us to be able to apply the teaching properly of, according your own status of whoever you are. If you father, if you mother, if you son, if you daughter, if you are monk, you should know your responsibility and do your best. Then you can have a happy life, you can have a happier life if you practice the Dhamma properly. So you don't have to abandon everything. It doesn't mean that, when someone reads to this particular sutta, you may think that, the Buddha wants us to abandon everything now, let's just, close all the business and become a monk and become a nun. No, you don't have to do that. This is not what he meant, okay? So, and what is noble search? Noble search, opposite. Someone being himself subject to birth, having understood, this is the key word here, having understood the danger in what is subject to birth, then he seeks for something else which is called unborn, supreme security from bondage or Nibbana. The key word here is fully understood. Understood what? Understood the danger that come with those acquisitions that you look after. Is come with unsatisfactoriness. Okay, insufficient. Human, animal, object, wealth, possession is come with unsatisfactoriness because it will deteriorate. We cannot sustain that happiness, which whatever object that we find happiness at the moment, because it will not last forever. Everything subject to impermanent, everything subject to dukkha, and everything subject to non-self, which is uncontrollable. So fully understand the danger of that. Then let's seek for something opposite. So instead of seeking for something subject to birth, he seeks something that's subject to unborn, and that point to something called Nibbana. Let's take a look further. Being himself subject to aging. Having understood the danger of what is subject to aging, he seeks something called unaging, supreme security from bondage, which is again Nibbana. You see, Nibbana show up every paragraph. Being himself subject to sickness, having understood the danger of what is subject to sickness, he seeks something unsickness or unfailing, and that thing point to again Nibbana. You see something here? Okay, everything that the Buddha mentioned point specifically to something called Nibbana. The word Nibbana appears here in this particular text, in this particular sutra, before he even mentioned, okay, at the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra. And then being himself subject to death, having understood the danger of what is subject to death, he seeks for something called deathless, supreme security from bondage, again point to Nibbana. And many times when you read the text, you hear the word deathless. The Buddha discovered deathless state. The Buddha teach about deathless story. His Dhamma is about deathless. People who listen to his talk will achieve something called the deathless state. Okay, being himself subject to sorrow, having understood the danger what is subject to sorrow, he seeks for sorrowless, something not sorrow, and that thing again point to Nibbana. Being himself subject to defilement, greed, hatred, delusion, having understood the danger in what is subject to defilement, he seeks the undefined, supreme security from bondage, again point to Nibbana. Okay, Nibbana is free from bondage. That's the state of mind that fully free from bondage, and that is called Nibbana. So here the Buddha gives us a hint. He did not explain what the Buddha is, but he gave the characteristic of the Buddha here. If you pay attention closely, what are those things? Unborn, unaging, unfailing, deathless, sorrowless, and undefined. These are the 6 characteristics of Nibbana appears here in this particular sutra. It's getting more interesting, right? So next session we will explore more about enlightenment and what is meant by Nibbana. What is the real characteristic of Nibbana, which is next week. And the Buddha goes on to explain that Bhikkhu, before my enlightenment, when I was still an unawakened Bodhisatta. Here is another key word here. Bodhisatta, what is Bodhisatta? Sat means animal, Sat means creature. Bodhisatta means the animal or creature that search for the liberation, that search for the truth, that search for the enlightenment. So before he enlightenment, he called himself Bodhisatta, not just an ordinary man. This man have a strong intention, okay, to find out the truth of life. I too mean himself, being subject to birth, to sickness, to aging, to death, to sorrow, regret, pain, distress, despair, to greed, aversion, and delusion. Himself, okay, subject to all of this. I was seeking happiness with what is subject to birth, to sickness, to aging, to death, to sorrow, regret, pain, distress, despair, to greed, aversion, and delusion. So imagine yourself back to the Buddha time. Now you sit in front of the Buddha among those monks who now listening to the Dhamma from the Buddha himself. And the Buddha said, you know what, before I become a Buddha, before I was an ordinary man, he called himself Bodhisattva. He himself, he know that he's subject to birth, aging, death, sorrow, despair, and delusion, and defilement. He mentioned that I was seeking happiness from what is subject to birth, aging, death, sickness, sorrow, and defilement as well. So he admit that as an ordinary man. And now he discovered something called the noble search, which is he gave the teaching to this kind of monk that you don't have to waste your time following the ignoble search. Now you become a monk, you should let go everything in the past and heading directly toward Nibbana, which is following the noble search. And now he explained what is the difference by noble search and ignoble search. And he said, then I consider that. You see, he talked to himself. I consider this is how smart people live. When they experience something, they just don't just easily let it go without paying attention or reflect on it. Now he reflects on his own life. I am getting old, I am getting ill, eventually I die, my grandfather died, my ancestor, they all die, and now I'm here, I'm following their footprint, and eventually I die as well. And why am I being subject to this kind of true nature of life? Why am I looking for something like this to give myself more burden? Then I consider this, why? Being myself subject to birth, why do I seek what is also subject to birth? Why? Why being myself subject to aging, sickness, death, sorrow, defilement? Why do I seek what is also subject to aging, sickness, death, sorrow, and defilement? Why? Why I have to seek for something like that? Having understood, again, this key expression, having understood the danger in what is subject to birth, aging, sickness, death, sorrow, and defilement, I seek the unborn supreme security from bondage, and that thing he gave the name Nibbana. You see, I was very touched when I come to this sentence. This is how the Buddha or Princess that have a very keen sense of observation. He observed what he experienced in the reality. He born, he noticed that his mom died, his father getting old, and people around him also subject to the same thing. And you may remember that the text talks about the Buddha sneak out the palace and he experienced something called old people, and he went out again, he saw something called sick people, ill people, and then he went out again, he noticed something called death. That's the legend that mentioned in the text that get developed later on. I believe Prince Siddhartha was a very smart man. He knows that people get old, and he himself, and in his whole life in the palace, 16 years, from time to time he gets sick as well. He have diarrhea, he have fever. That's the nature of human being. He don't have to sneak out of the palace to find out that this is old, this is sick people. I believe he knows that. Okay, and then he realized that there must be a way out. With his sharp and keen sense of observation, he tried to find the answer why we have to subject to this condition, this nature. Is there any way out of this cycle of suffering? Because birth is suffering, sickness is suffering, we're not happy about it. Okay, death is suffering, separate from something we love is suffering, associated with people we don't like also suffering. Even though life was perfect, born as a prince, live in a palace, but this thing kind of bothering him, and he feel like I have come to the point where I have to seek for the truth. So he decided to leave the palace. He said, later, while I still young, black hair, young man, endowed with blessing of youth, the prime of life. This is the best life. This is the best life. Come on, born prince, powerful, financially powerful, politically powerful, militarily powerful. What a perfect life. So when he was young, in the prime of life, though my mother and father, his mom and dad, wished otherwise and wept with tearful face. Father and mother don't want him to leave the palace. They want him to carry on the throne or become the next king. I shaved off my hair. He shaved off his hair, beard, put on the yellow robes, and went from home life into homelessness. This is what happened. Prince Siddhartha decided, I cannot stay in the palace no more. Even though mom and dad was crying, they want me to become the next king. So I said, you know what? It's time for me to look for the truth. And from another sutra, the word that he used when he teach another group of monks why he left the palace, he used the word kusala. Kusala is a Pali word that means goodness. Something good, something wholesome, and he didn't know what it was. So he called it kusala. I'm going to look for something kusala, look for something wholesome. Now life is in the palace, even though it was a good life, but it's unwholesome because we're subject to this. We get old, we get ill, eventually we die. No matter how much I love my dad, my mom, or my son, we all going to die someday. We all going to be separated someday. So why don't I look for the solution for this? If I find the solution, maybe I can help not only myself, I can help everyone I love, and I can help every being in this realm of existence. You see, to me, this is very touching. This is because of his loving kindness and compassion to everyone. That's why he left everything he has in the palace, from home with perfect home, not just ordinary home, perfect home, super luxurious life, to homeless, to be a beggar. Eat what being offered, stay wherever is available, the cave, the tree, the empty hut, to seek for the truth. What you have learned so far? What you have learned so far from this particular sutra? I want you to think of two dimensions. First, if you are a monk, you think of as a Buddhist monk, what the Buddha actually trying to say or to teach us to understand the difference between ignoble and noble search. If you are a lay person, you can think in the eyes of the lay person, what did the Buddha mean? What kind of benefit that I can learn from this sutra? Do I have to abandon everything, and got myself ordained and become a Buddhist monk, become a Buddhist nun, and hope to find happiness? So you have to think carefully, because the most important thing in Buddhism is about wisdom. Wisdom, there are three levels of wisdom, right? The first wisdom is wisdom that you gain from your own study. You read, you listen, you talk to someone, and it becomes your wisdom, something you don't know, and then now you know. And the second level is wisdom, is called wisdom come from thinking. You reflect on what you learn. You put everything that you study into your own thinking, critical thinking, and it's become your knowledge. It becomes your wisdom. And the highest form of wisdom is the wisdom come from seeing, come from meditation. This is very deep. Everything that the Buddha teach, his wisdom, not come from thinking, not come from reading book because there was no library back then, but it come from his own discovery through his meditation, and it's become the wisdom. So you have to think a little bit deeper. One should be mindful when seeking happiness with what is subject to birth, aging, death, sorrow, defilement. We can call it impermanent object, or the object of the samsaric object, the object that keep us in the realm of existence. And it's coming down to this word, non-attachment. You can be a good father, good wife, good husband, good son, good daughter, good business owner, good boss, perfectly fine, no problem. Accumulate more wealth, accumulate more happiness, no problem, fine. But keep in mind that every happiness, in your definition that you have been accumulating or about to accumulate more, you think of yourself as dancing, you're having fun, enjoy life. I am born now, I am rich, I have everything I want. So you keep dancing, enjoying, singing and dancing. But keep in mind that you are dancing on the canvas, or the floor that lay down with the true nature of life, which is dukkha or suffering. That's happiness that you have is not going to last forever, including your own self. So be mindful when you consume, the material happiness. Happiness comes from sense pleasure. It's going to come with danger because it's subject to change, it's continue to change, and it's uncontrollable. You cannot control. If something we like, we want to control that happiness for a very long time. If something we don't like, we don't want to associate with that person. We don't want to get nearby that person. We don't want to even see the object, human, animal, something that we don't like. And this is called the craving mind. Craving mind means what? Craving mind is I like and I don't like mind. Okay, and craving is the term or the name of defilement that keep in our mind. Whatever we like, we go after. We want more and more of something we like. And why do we like it? Because we see from our eye. Oh, I like the car, I like the phone, I like that woman, I like that business. What we see, we have feeling. Either you like it or you don't like it. If you like it, you go after it and want to have it more and more. If you see something you don't like, you say, oh, I don't want this. Okay, you run away from it. You don't want to get nearby it. So like and don't like is come from craving mind. So be careful with that. And if you are a monk, you need to know that when this thing is happening, like and don't like, oh, this is how the craving or tanha is working in the mind. So we should be careful with that. If something we like, we understand it, okay, and keep the mind still. Keep the mind neutral. Don't follow what we like and don't follow what we don't like. If we hear something we don't want to hear, okay, don't get agitated with it. If we hear something we want to hear, don't be overjoyed with it. Don't get trapped with the rama pressing, okay, or over criticizing. Just keep your mind neutral. See, this is how the monk should train. So when we study the sutra, I think we can reflect a lot of things. And every time you study the same sutra, you learn different things from the first time you read or the first time you study, because you kind of have more understanding, and then you can have more way of reflection of what you have read or what you have learned. Okay, so if you're a lay person, again, it's okay to enjoy life, material world. This is the world we're living in. You don't have to abandon everything and shut down your business and get lost in the forest and become a monk and meditate. No, the Buddha did not suggest that. You need to know your role and your position and do your best on that role. But when he teach the monk, he go directly to the point, which is Nibbana. So then don't waste time for something else, just go there. And the second one, there is something called noble search, which is not many people know about it. We only know ignoble search. We search for something impermanent. There is something that we should at least understand about it and search for it. It's called noble search. One should search for the path that lead to the true freedom, true liberation, or true happiness, and that is called enlightenment. And that path is, again, the eightfold path. Number 4 of the Four Noble Truths. Okay? All right. Start from the beginning. Okay? The sutra is Ariyapariyesana Sutta. It talks about the noble search or noble quest. The Buddha gave this sutra or this discourse, this teaching to the group of monks. He shared his own experience as a man, okay, who have a very good life, but something missing. He don't feel happy in the palace. So he went out searching. He didn't know what it was. He knows something bothering him, but he didn't know how to free that worry. And he called that search is kusala. Okay, I want to search for something goodness, something wholesome that can heal my mind, that can soothe my mind, that can calm my mind. So he went out, okay, and the first thing he did was he tried to locate a good teacher, someone who can teach him, okay, a noble teaching. So there were 2 well-known meditation masters, Alanaka ascetic and Uddaka ascetic. So he went, pay respect to those, the first teacher first, and learn them all from the first teacher, all the knowledge, and still not satisfied. So he moved on to the second teacher and learned everything from the second teacher in very fast pace, very quickly. And both teachers said, you know what, you are the smartest student I ever known. Please don't go anywhere. Please help me stay here and teach, my student. The Buddha rejected that offer. So he said, you know what, I don't feel satisfied. My question that I have in my mind still not fully answered. So he decided to went on his own search. So he met with the 5 ascetics. He tortured himself for 6 years, right, and still didn't work. He started practice meditation on his own until he achieved something called enlightenment. He achieved something called Nibbana. And then he think, oh, who should I teach, right? And then the story goes on until he met the first 5 students, or the Panchavakhi, or the 5 ascetics, and he gave the first teaching called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra. So the second part, we will save this body of the sutra, and we will talk about it later on the next Friday, next session. Okay. So with that, I believe that should be it for this morning. If anyone have any question or not, okay. So may the power of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha protect you and your family. May everyone who joined this Zoom meeting and people in the world to be free from worry and suffering, to be safe from COVID-19 pandemic, to have a good life and a long life, and be able to practice meditation and realize the Dhamma inside yourself and achieve Nibbana inside yourself at ease and as quick as possible. So rejoice in your merit. Okay? So rejoice in everyone's merit for joining this Zoom meeting. Please have a beautiful day and have a wonderful meditation practice. Okay? So stay safe, stay strong until we meet again.